Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Kornix, and welcome to Yacc, yet another Crowcast where I pick a game, I play it for a week, and then I talk about it. This week's game is Star Fox for the Super Nintendo. It was released in 1993, and it's a rail shooter, developed by Nintendo EAD and Argonaut Software, and published by Nintendo. And also there'll be spoilers ahead, just so you know, but first a little backstory. So I played this other game called Lilat Wars or Star Fox 64, depending on the region where you are from. So that's my introduction to this series as a whole. But I never played this game and up until recently, actually, because I read about it in magazines, retro magazines, and that's how I got to know the series. I had no idea about it, and it was on the SNES Mini, so I got to play it this week. So as you start up the game, you're greeted with a cutscene and a large ship flying by and towards like a planet with some military music in the backgrounds like drums, and then there's a splash screen with the whole entire team: Fox McCloud, Slippy the Toad, or Slippy the Frog maybe, Falco, and Peppy the Hare. So a thing about this game is that it uses a specific technique to render 3D objects on the Super Nintendo, which is impressive in itself. This game also, for some reason, has anthropomorphic animals as the characters in the game. So there are the big enemy. There's no big spoiler in it, but Andross is this primeape, like an ape, and the main character you play as, Fox McCloud, well, he's a fox. So when you get further into the selection, you are shown the controls, which is really useful. All the buttons are displayed on screen, and you can select between two options from here: training and the game. And training is basically you getting a hold of the controls. So flying through rings and flying in formation and stuff. And it's actually kind of tricky if you don't get into it. Luckily, there's a good thing: you can change the control type as well, because it's the idea of flying these planes, or these crafts called R-Wings. They are, in some flying games, you want to tilt down on the D-pad to fly down, and vice versa. So you can actually change the control type to your liking, which is nice. So you start the game, or the original game, on Corneria. All the games start from this point, but then you can change to different paths, which I didn't know about this week, but there's a different difficulty. So the furthest path to the down is the hardest, the mid path to the middle of the galaxy, I guess, is the medium, and straight up is the light option, the easy option. So these sectors are Sector X, asteroids, and another asteroid. So depending on which path you take, you will have a different experience. No matter which path you choose, the main goal is to get to the main bad guy called Andross on his planet of Venom. And as I said before, you play as Fox McCloud, which he's an anthropomorphic fox. And for some reason, I found this a little bit weird, but maybe it's like a hardware limitation. The game doesn't cover the entire screen. This game is powered by like one chip that does all the work, all the calculations for 3D objects and whatnot. It's a bit crude, and the game doesn't run that well, which I will talk about a bit further on. So there is a lot of things on screen in general. On the bottom right corner, you have the boost / the brake meter, and on top of that meter are your Nova bombs. You start up with 3 bombs, but you can pick up more throughout the stage. You also have a shield in the bottom left corner, which is, how much damage you can take. You can recover some health by flying through rings and checkpoints throughout the stage. You can also pick up extra Nova bombs and extra lives along the way. Also, throughout the battle, you're accompanied by your other anthropomorphic animal buddies, but usually they don't do much. They're just on the screen for you to help them out. So basically, they get in trouble and you have to save them. And Slip is the most annoying because, he gets in the way. And a lot of times, there's a lot of things on screen, and the ship handles all the calculations and stuff, and it's chugs. Sometimes the game, I swear, runs at like 4 frames a second, which is not good. And it's really easy to hit your buddies in combat because it's a lot of things on the screen at once. So this game is not easy, and it's not really smooth at all. So I did my best this week, but as I said, if a game moves at like 4 frames a second and there's a lot to focus on at the screen and stuff, I'm really bad at these types of games. That's what I'm trying to say. But a thing that I really like is when you start up the first level, you fly through this corridor, and it's all in 3D, and it's like a cutscene in itself. So you fly through this tunnel, this corridor, and text pops up on screen saying scramble, and there's like really dramatic sounds are blaring and stuff. And once you leave the little base area where you're in, the soundtrack kicks in, and that's a really good, nice vibe. I felt hyped to play actually. So depending on what path you take, you will encounter different planets and different places. So there are a couple of those. Titania, Sector Y, the Black Hole, the Space Armada, which is a really cool level, the Meteors, Sector C, Fortuna, and Macbeth. I'm feeling like I'm jumping all over. I really wrote the script really badly, but the first boss of the first level is a ship. So the main gimmick to all the bosses is you're supposed to shoot in the red area and that damage the boss, and that's about it. So at the end of the level you will get your total score, and if you score like well enough, get a good enough score, you get an extra like 1-up. I never got one, but that's what one thing you can earn. So the next stage is the asteroids, and it's really hard to see anything at this level because there are a lot of asteroids, a lot of enemies that pops up, and once you shoot an enemy, they actually explode, and it's even harder to see stuff, plus that the frame rate is right out garbage. Oh yeah, and the boss on this stage is a really strange looking ship. So the next stage is the Space Armada, and this stage introduces Star Destroyers like in, Star Wars. Really cool looking ships. Shows off the scale, but this is where I really needed to stop playing because I got a real headache. And I think it was during the previous stage, the asteroids, I started to feel like I got like tension in my head, and I was like, okay, I can't keep on focusing. And once I got to there's like a tunnel or something in the Space Armada stage. Now that wasn't when I felt like, oh no, I can't play this. I have to put the controller down and do something else. So gameplay. Take your team to Andross' lair/planet and destroy him and his evil plans. Control, the D-pad moves the ship around. Select changes the view of the ship. It's really useful during the asteroid stage because it's a lot easier to focus on things. The L and R button do this roll, deflect, shot thing. So it was the same thing in Lilac Wars, I believe, the Star Fox 64. If you tap the L and R triggers, you do like this loop, and you can deflect lasers and whatnot. The X button boost, which makes your ship fly a little faster in a short amount of time, and then you have the blasters on the Y button, then you have the Nova bombs on the A button, and then you brake with the B button. And you can't hold the brakes as well, you have to, they kind of brake a bit and then you let go. There's this cooldown, I guess. Graphics. So this game uses the Super Effects chip to draw a polygonal graphic on the screen. That is to the price of the frame rate. So sometimes it's really hard to focus because there are a lot of stuff on screen, but it chugs on. It's impressive for the time, I guess, but today, not so much in my opinion. Sound and music. Hiyame Hirashava made the music for this game, and the music is really good. From the introduction of the game, of the ship flying over to the planet, there's this dramatic military drum beat going on, and some stages when they're about to start, they actually set the feel for the whole level, so to speak, and I really like the soundtrack. And it also has this cool thing with samples that I know that the Super Nintendo can do. So when you're about to start a mission, there's a sound sample of someone saying good luck. It was the same thing in like the Lilac Wars as well. So that was kind of cool because generally older systems have a trouble with like voice and stuff. It takes up a lot of memory, but they squeeze that in there, and I like that little touch of that. Easter eggs, secrets, and glitches. So there are certain things you can trigger throughout the game. So you can find this whale, like a space whale. I'm not joking. So just before a stage, he flies up, and if you shoot him, it will drop some power-ups that you need for the battle, which is kind of nice. There's also another thing about, if you've seen the the American box art, it has this picture of this puppet, atrocious looking fox, and there actually were a couple of these VHS tapes that were sent out to toy stores and whatnot in Japan, where they introduce kids to how to fly the plane and whatnot, and use these horrendous puppet to tell this story. It's on YouTube, and I couldn't believe it existed until I actually found it because I was curious. So yeah, go ahead, look that up. So in conclusion, I wrote, no, I can't recommend this. So I like the music a lot, and the polygonal graphics are charming. But on the negative end of the spectrum, you have the frame rate issue, which it won't go away. And when there are a lot of things on the screen, it's hard to see what you're doing. As I said before, you can change that with the view with the select button in the asteroid stage to make things seem a little bit better, but it still chugs. And you're better off playing another game like Star Fox 64 Lilac Wars, because that is, well, aged better in my opinion. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening and or watching, and take care.